This might be a little bit basic if you are a veteran to White Stars, but watch anyway and see if you think I'm wrong. And if you think I'm wrong, let me know either in the comments or Discord. So I'm just going to jump right into it. So this is what I would think would be the best potential loadouts for your standard / tank loadouts. If you're new to White Stars, I would make a decision early. Do I want to be an assassin base? There's really two main ways to go, and that's either assassin or standard. And if you're not that big on White Stars, you're not sure if you're going to like it, I would go with the standard, because a lot of these mods that are going to be great for this build are also utilized in Red Stars. So if you find out you don't really like White Stars that much, or if you like them just enough to want to do it but not really invest in it, because White Stars are not a great return on investment. So if the game to you is like, how can I progress as fast as possible, White Stars are not a good way to do it. So if that's where you're at, if you're looking for a return on investment or you're just not that interested, I would go with the standard / tank build. So I'm going to do my best to try to talk people out of using passive shield in White Star. You'll see I don't even have it on the list because I think it's that bad. It's better than Alpha Shield. You also won't see Alpha Shield on the list. But let's say you're a person who's not that interested in White Star. Just unlock Omega Shield and you'll already be better than like a level 4 or 5 passive shield. And you might look at passive shield and say, well, the shield is higher than Omega because mine is leveled up higher than a level 1 Omega. But the thing that makes Omega and Mirror and all the shields except for passive good in White Star is that you can use them more than once and get yourself an entire new shield and be set. You can totally upset a fight that you should have really lost and activate a new shield, and suddenly now you're going to win because you just have half your health is hull, right? So you just increased your total effective HP by 50% instantly just because your timer is up. Passive, you'll never have that opportunity. At best, they did buff passive recently. I have not noticed a noticeable regeneration during a White Star of passive. Maybe I should look harder. Maybe you disagree, but I have seen nothing to suggest that passive is now a viable White Star option. If you're so disinterested in White Star, but you just want to get in and give it a shot, okay, use passive shield. It will still be a shield. It's better than not having a shield at all, I guess. So then the decision becomes between Omega Shield and Mirror Shield. I know a lot of people, especially, so Mirror Shield just got a big buff. So before that, what a lot of people were doing were they made a decision to say, okay, in Red Star, I care more about Red Star than White Star. And in Red Star, I want to have a level 1 Omega Shield because they did the math and found that Omega Shield is a better hydrogen usage for more shield than passive shield is. So they deliberately keep Omega Shield level 1 and just don't even think about passive anymore. And then because passive is so bad in White Star, then really their only option left is to go Mirror Shield. In their minds was to go Mirror Shield. My argument against that back then was, well, why don't you just go Delta Shield and be an assassin? If that's really how if you really want Omega Shield to stay at level 1, go Delta and be an assassin. But Maybe they just don't want to play that way, or maybe they hadn't thought about it. But now Mirror Shield is buffed, so now it's a different discussion. So my thinking on this is Mirror Shield, now that it's buffed, has the potential to be very good in Red Star. And that's and especially if you're comparing it to White Star. So what happens in White Star is not what happens in Red Star in terms of how you take damage. So lots and lots and lots of the damage that will get dealt in White Star will not be directly from an enemy's weapon. I'm not sure if Mirror Shield will mirror the damage from Destiny, but it will certainly not mirror the damage done from a rocket, and you will take a lot of damage from rockets if you play enough White Star games. And there's just a lot of things, a lot of reasons why Mirror cannot actually end up mirroring damage, and then now you basically just have a weaker Omega Shield. Omega, you get what you get. It's the most shield you're gonna find on any shield, and I think in White Star, even post buff, that Omega Shield is just better than Mirror Shield, because of just how much it provides. Now Mirror Shield in the very, very late games, like if you go on the Reddits and the wikis and stuff, you'll see you can see that Mirror Shield late starts to look really appealing. So if you plan to play this game forever, maybe you want to take Mirror Shield to level 10 when it's an unlock price of 8 million, because at that point Mirror Shield starts to go up 1,000 per level, which is how much Omega Shield goes up even at the highest levels. So the highest level of Mirror Shield goes to 13,000, the highest level Omega goes to 17, but you're mirroring 32% of the damage with the mirror, so that's very probably worth the 5,000 difference in shield that you're losing. However, I just, again, you probably realistically won't play that long. I'm sad to say. Maybe you will. But that's a very high bar, and there will probably be new shields in the game, and this probably won't even, or things will be buffed and nerfed, and it'll be a totally different thing by the time you get that far in the game. But I think what people were doing with Omega Shield is now what you're going to do with Mirror Shield, in that you want Mirror Shield for Red Star. And it actually would kind of start to make sense to level it up. The gas price does go up too, so that's always a big concern in Red Star, is how much gas you're using versus what you get back. But Mirror Shield will not, every single bit of damage you take in a Red Star, except for maybe the things exploding, the planet killers, but all the damage you take in a Red Star will get reflected by the mirror. So that's why I think that's a better place for Mirror Shield if you're trying to pick, like, which one am I going to use in Red Star and which one am I going to use in White Star. So that's what I would do if it were me. I would use Omega Shield for White Star, Mirror Shield for Red Star, and keep like a little low level passive shield that you transitioned out of on your way through the game, before you make the switch to Mirror Shield for your tougher Red Stars. All right. So we're 9 minutes into this already, and we've just talked about 2 shields. All right. So for the weapon choice here, there's a really, for a long time, laser wasn't that good, and everyone in my corporation has either been around a long time or has hardly been around at all. And so those of us who are around a long time all picked battery. and then we sort of talked everyone else into using battery, and then I don't know. I haven't seen a single person in my corporation using laser, but now that it's been buffed, it's actually at least worth mentioning here. If you already have, I would, if you've already leveled up battery a lot, I would continue to do it. If you've already leveled laser up a lot, I would continue to do that. But if you're wondering, like, let's say you've never played Hades Star at all, you're looking to start your account from level 1, which one do you pick? Okay, so at low level laser needs about in White Star, it needs about 5 hours to ramp up, to ramp up to the point that it actually was worth it to have it compared to battery. As you go higher and higher, that number goes up to 7.3 hours. And the shields will also be different, and the health pools will also be different. So maybe battles will take longer also as you get higher. But that, on paper anyway, it makes it seem as though the further you go, the less valuable laser will be, because you're basically adding 2 hours onto just making it better than battery at all. So you have to think, if you, let's say you're a more veteran player and you're really interested in this, and maybe you're thinking about starting up laser. I think about it as like, let's say, just look at every fight you've ever been in and say, has it lasted longer or shorter than 7 hours? In my estimation, not battles, but continuous damage from your weapon, how long does that go for? Because if you switch targets, it resets laser 1. We'll talk about duels in a second, but duels don't work the same. So even if you didn't break stream when laser was continuously firing, if you change targets, you lose your charge. So do your battles last longer or shorter? Let's go with an average. Let's say your laser is level 3. That's 6.5 hours. Actually, that's a low level laser actually, because laser you unlock pretty low. So let's go with level 5 then. So level 5, you would have to be continuously shooting at somebody for 7.3 hours. Do you usually do that in a fight? I think not. From the White Stars I've been in, that my stream actually would last for that long. So I would encourage people away from laser. And maybe you're thinking, like, what about Unity? Unity amplifies it, but it also amplifies battery. So I think I'm fairly certain that Unity is going to affect both of them in sort of the same, so that they still compare in the same way. So then let's talk about duels. Duels for a standard / tank build are interesting. On paper, they are like the best weapons ever. You're just thinking, like, you hit 2 targets and it very quickly ramps up to like almost like if you're hitting 2 targets, you're almost instantly doing as much damage as battery, and then it rises from that point. On paper, that's amazing, but in reality, what happens a lot is you don't hit 2 targets. Or you start to hit 2 targets, but then you get interrupted, or one of the 2 targets leaves, and now you're hitting 1 target, but then they come back. Somebody new comes back in, and you'll keep getting interrupted, where your duels aren't hitting 2 targets, and you can't ramp. And that's still not terrible, because you can still even if you don't ramp, as long as you can hit 2 targets, you'll be doing as much damage output as battery. It'll just be spread out, and you do want your damage to be focused on one target, because the sooner one target is out, the better. But focusing is hard in White Star because people move around in ways that you can't control. But really the thing about duels that is appealing, beyond the damage potential, is because it shoots 2 targets, it's really effective at killing little things that would have been annoying, but the fact that you can target it makes it so that you can actually kill that little thing. And those little things are A, rockets, and B, supports. So even though you're not an assassin, there is the potential, I mean, ideally, right, the whole point of what you're trying to do is interrupt supports. That's really the purpose of every battleship on the field. You should be aimed at how do you interrupt what their supports are doing. Because battles mean nothing, right, if you don't do that. You could all the fighting in the world doesn't matter if neither side alters what the supports are doing, because the supports are the things that score, not the battleships. So ideally, there's going to be situations like your whole point, right, is to get at the supports. So you can use your duels to be relevant in damage for team fights, because that's sort of what you're aiming for in your standard tank builds. Is you're kind of looking for team fights, or at least fights that involve a couple people, and you're going to want to just try to push your way at the supports. But if they can get like one battleship to tank your single target weapon, the support won't be forced to interrupt what it's doing. You might end up doing that because people get nervous, but a skilled corporation is going to know that, like, you can't kill me because the battleship I have in place is going to tank the damage, and my supports can continue to do what they're doing. But with duels, you might, if one battleship is in your way, you can manipulate your duels to, you don't even have to manipulate. The duels will pick up the little targets like supports and kill them. And rockets are the same way. If you have rockets coming in your fight, you can enter the fight in such a way, much more easily with duels, to try to hit the rockets and kill them than you can with battery. And it's not a guarantee. So if you do have 2 battleships you're targeting, the rockets are going to get in and hurt you. And we'll talk about mass battery later, but mass battery is that's really the appeal of mass battery over duels, is that it has more targets. It can do that thing better. But the ramping damage is what makes it better for standard/tank, is that duels have versatility, where single target weapons and mass battery don't really. So I want to talk now about the support modules. So barrier, I think is the best support module in the game for everything. Well, I'll dial that back a tad. I think it's the best support module for White Star overall, because you can continue to shoot while you control the way in which the fight is happening. So anything that controls movement is good, is going to be useful in some way, and with this one, it's useful for support and tanks, because you can control how the other standard/tank ships are coming into the fight in a way that lets you control the tempo of the fight. And it's hard to explain, but just trust me, barrier is freaking good for this, because its range. The biggest reason really is because its range is longer than the range of weapons. So you can either keep somebody away from you who you don't want in, or keep somebody in whilst keeping the others out. And EMP is sort of a similar concept. It's nice because it knocks out their weapons. It's also knocks out your weapons, however. And one of the little sort of disappointing things about EMP is it doesn't scale up that well. It starts out like incredibly good. Like if you're at low level White Stars, EMP is by far the best mod in the game. But as it scales up, you don't get that much more time on it for how much. And that for that reason, because of matchmaking in White Star right now, I would keep it at low level because you're not going to earn that much more, and you will you're hurting your matchmaking because matchmaking in White Star is based on technology. So your level 8 EMP compared to somebody else, and now it's going to like sort of try to match you, like, okay, well, his EMP is level 8, so what's an equivalent level to something like Barrier or Destiny or Time Warp, or like and it's not entirely known how it matches, but generally you don't want to really advance the technology of something that's not going to advance its value. It's only a marginal amount compared to other things. So then also have to talk about teleport. Teleport is critical because there's going to be times where you're trying to kill assassins and you're just too slow to do that. So if you use teleport, also assassins love having teleport themselves. So you can use teleport to match their movements, or if you just get beat and you're just out of position, you can use teleport to get into position to deal with the threat. And that's true also for regular fights too. It's just way more noticeable for assassins because of speed is such an issue. And teleport, especially once you start getting higher level teleport, it takes the same amount of time to activate, but the range goes up, so you're effectively giving yourself speed the higher your teleport goes. Teleport's also critical for escaping fights. So this build is sort of like, I want to have a lot of shield and hit hard, but you're also going to be one of the first people into the fight. So given that, you're going to take the most of a beating, and you're going to hope, yes, every fight you're going to win and you won't have to run away, but realistically there's no way that that's the case, and you're going to have some fights where you're losing, and being able to get out of the fight with teleport is incredibly important. And Destiny now also has a similar use. So Destiny is it's so dumb, but also so smart. You have to parse apart what it is Destiny does, and then think about, okay, how do I use that? So on the one hand, it does damage, right? It does more damage than a rocket generally. It does. I think last time I looked, I think it's roughly about 2 rockets worth of damage. Maybe a little less. So, right. So you have the damage, but you're then removed from the fight. So if you weren't ready to win the fight, and you didn't need to get out of the fight, you don't want to do that damage yet. So you need to hold the Destiny and wait. It's great damage, but also you have to time it properly. And and then also deal with the fact that now you're in a random place on the map, and you're going to have to figure out how you get out of that place, or are you going to be of any value going forward because of how bad your new position is. Plus you have a cooldown time. You basically EMP yourself when where you've landed. Then the other aspect to that is it can sort of be useful in the same way teleport is, where if a battle is going really badly, you can use Destiny and then be out of the fight. And sometimes that'll end up getting you killed anyway, but if you were going to die in that fight, it was better to have the chance to live than to be certainly dead. And then in that same moment, you're also hitting for a bunch of damage, so maybe you're saving yourself plus adding a bunch of damage that could turn the fight for the rest of the people who are on your team and in that fight. So then I want to talk about time warp as well. At low levels, I would not worry about time warp because it doesn't affect time that heavily at low levels, and you're limited to so few slots on your battleship that it's not going to compete with like EMP and some of the other things that are really good. But at higher levels, it gets insane. It starts to like become this necessary thing where like, how do we cover the entire map in time warp all the time? Because it affects the cooldowns of other things. So someone else's time warp will help the cooldown of your time warp, so it comes back online, and it creates this like feedback loop where it just gets out of control. And the amount of speed that it provides is like, it makes you faster than Delta Shield, and the whole point of Delta Shield is to make you go fast. I think at high levels, time warp is like overpowered, honestly. And there are some really good mods in the game, like Barrier, for example, I talked about already. There's some really good mods, and it's at a certain point, around the middle of the game, you'll be trying to figure out, how can I work time warp in? I haven't even worked it in yet, but I am certain that once my battleship goes up one more level, absolutely I am at putting time warp on. A Sanctuary is Sanctuary is what it is. Everybody knows what it is from Red Star. It keeps you alive. I try to encourage there's other ways to keep yourself alive, like teleport and Destiny, and Barrier is really effective for running away. But at the end of the day, if you're one of these people who are barely interested enough in White Star to even do it, Sanctuary is a really, really good mod for someone like that, because it makes it so you're guaranteed you're not going to lose any money. The rewards, even for the loser rewards, keep in mind, cover your costs for losing battleships generally. At higher levels, I know the battleships start to get really expensive and the rewards for White Stars start to go down. But by that point, you're already going to know whether or not you want to run Sanctuary. And then Unity is worth having on the list. A lot of people use it. I've used it. It's good. And it's crazy because it really does amplify your damage a lot, and in team fights specifically. If you're trying to play assassin, we'll save that for later. For a standard tank person who's trying to get into the team fight, Unity has the potential to be crazy, like crazy strong. And there's just the fact that it isn't one of the best mods. It just says so much about the other mods. And the reason really that Unity is so low on the list is because it doesn't do anything to control what the other person does, and you yourself can still be controlled. It doesn't give you any escape, and it doesn't give you any control. And that's really what a White Star is about. If you can stay alive and keep them from the enemy from escaping death, you'll win White Star. That's really the easiest way to explain White Star. And since Unity doesn't help you really do either of those two things especially well, I have it lower on the list. One way in which you might consider using it is if your corporation has a wild disparity, like a lot of low-level guys and then some high-level guys. Consider putting Unity on one of your high-level guys, and it's hard because as you get high level, you start getting the new support mods that compete with it. But consider putting it on one of your high-level guys because your damage is already going to be really high due to the fact that you're higher level than everybody, and then you're gonna amplify that damage by quite a bit just by getting in fights around your teammates. All right, so that I'm trying to go quickly. I'm already 30 minutes into this video, so we'll move directly then to Assassin. Assassin, the only shield is Delta Shield. If you're not running Delta Shield, you're not an Assassin, and I'm going to leave it there. So your weapon choices then are Mass Battery and Duels. Duels are interesting because you really... I really do lean Mass Bat for true Assassins. But duels are interesting because an assassin could decide that they're close to a team fight, and the team could really use you late in the fight. You never want to be the first into the fight because your shield is so weak. But if it's late into a fight, the enemy doesn't have any EMP left, you could enter that fight with your duels and rely on the tanking from your team and use duels to actually ramp up a lot of damage and maybe make a big difference in that fight. Also, the difference at low levels, the difference between one target and two is decent. It's not worth dismissing entirely, but you're talking about the difference between hitting one person and three people. I just don't. Usually, if you can get past one defender, usually you're going to be able to manipulate yourself in a way that especially as we start to talk about the support mods, that you have control of yourself in ways that the enemy can't prevent, and you'll be able to manipulate your targeting to be able to hit that support you're trying to get to. But if you're not entirely certain of that, your ability to do that, go for Mass Battery. Also, if you're just not that generally interested in duels, it can be a nice Mass Battery level 1. And people are going to attack me for saying this. Mass Battery level 1 is the best version of Mass Battery, only because of the matchmaking system right now. So assassins are all entirely about killing supports, and supports have 1 health, and Mass Battery level 1 hits 3 targets, and no matter how high level it gets, you don't need more than 1 damage. Now at level 4 or 5 or something like that, Mass Battery adds more targets. It goes from 3 to 4, and then I think again from 4 to 5 at the latest levels. And I just don't see enough. I've never in my life seen a Mass Battery have all 3 targets tanked so that the supports can't be killed, and then the assassin couldn't do anything about it in order to actually not end up getting killed. So like maybe initially all 3 targets were tanked, but then the assassin can just move or do something to manipulate where people are and then get the kill that way. So if your duels are low level, you don't feel like leveling them, you could just throw on a level 1 mass battery, especially if you're a low level assassin. I personally, the most bang for your buck, if you know you are interested in White Star and you're a very low level person, Assassin is great because you can get Delta Shield, you can and throw some speed on, and then yeah, you do need to level Delta because it starts to gain a lot of speed as you level it up. But you can leave your mass battery at level 1, and then you can get teleport. You can get impulse is also very low level, and you can be really dangerous and draw the attention of very powerful, expensive ships just by your sheer existence, without even killing a support. If you as a low level person can get close to the enemy so that a high level ship has to be distracted in protecting the supports from you, you've won. You don't even need to kill any supports, because the way that the tech matchmaking works, you've just created a big advantage. Even if you only distract one person, you've created an advantage. And almost always assassins are going to draw the attention of multiple people, in which case you've just added so much value to your team. A barrier for assassins works a little differently from your tank mode version. So for assassins, you're going to want to use it to keep people away from you, unless you're talking about supports, in which case you might want to use it to sort of wrangle them in, but you usually won't need it because you'll be so much faster than the supports. It would only be if in the rare scenarios where the support will be in safety if you can't kill him within that little window of time. But usually you're going to use it to keep enemy battleships away from you. And I think it's close with teleport. I would rate both barrier and teleport 5-star for assassin. And teleport, the way assassins use teleport is you have your objective in mind. Everybody knows your objective, and that's to kill the supports. And so you make a move. You move one direction with your waypoint, and then that will force the enemy to counteract what you're doing by moving to that position. And then as soon as they make that move, the moment they leave, you teleport to the other direction, and so I call it juking or deking them. All you do is you just move to where they're not going, and then push the attack on the supports. The other way you can use it is you just get close to where the supports are, and you just teleport directly onto that spot. There's ways to prevent this. People can EMP you before your weapon activates, but even that is not a perfect solution. It is an effective way for an assassin to confirm some kills. They can also move out of the way before your teleport actually lands. There's ways to avoid it, but it's a very, very versatile, useful thing for assassins to have teleport. Time warp, if you have the slots available and it's high level, time warp can be really good. You can get yourself over into position on the enemy's side of the map really quickly. The obvious thing to note about time warp is it also warps these enemies' time, so it'll help you close the distance to get over there. But once you are over there, it is gonna also affect the enemies who are trying to stop you or run away from you. But the cool thing about time warp combined with teleport is teleport quickens the speed at which time warp quickens the rate at which teleport activates, meaning that you can jump in much faster, and it's can be really deadly we've had that done to us. Not so fortunate enough to have a lot of our team do that to the enemy quite yet. Impulse is also interesting. It's good. I don't think it's as good as teleport or barrier, but it is very useful. It can move. The thing that makes it better than teleport is that there's no cooldown moment where you have to wait for it to activate. So you can very instantly have a little burst of speed. And sometimes, and given that you're already moving very fast, a burst of speed is really helpful. And it can make the difference between getting the kills that you're looking for or not. Destiny's also useful. You can use it if late in the game, if things are going badly, you can try to get a Destiny off somewhere else to hopefully end up in a place where you can hit the enemy supports. That used to be a bigger problem in the past before some changes were made to Destiny, but you can still kind of do it now. The other thing you can use it for is if there's a big team fight and you're not valuable currently for some reason getting damage on this enemy supports, so you can quickly use Delta to get to the fight and then use Destiny to just land some damage and not have to worry about your Delta getting beat up because you're just going to try to get in there, land the damage, and get out. Sanctuary is more relevant for assassins, I think, because assassins by their nature are thrusting themselves into very dangerous situations, and Sanctuary is really good because especially with Time Warp and such, you might get 3 lives in a single White Star, and if you have to rebuild your ship 2 times, that's expensive, and Sanctuary can really alleviate that cost. Rocket I've added to the list. I hardly ever see this. I do see it, but it's rare. And I think that it's a very underrated mod for assassins because what you're doing, right, is you're trying to get into position where you can kill supports. And very frequently, the person who comes to stop you has single target weapon, either battery or laser. And if you had Rocket in that situation, you could fire the rocket as soon as they've started to hit you. You could fire the rocket directly through their weapon radius because now they've already targeted your battleship. So now you can fire the rocket safely through them and onto the supports, and maybe kill multiple supports because it has AOE. The thing that really hurts Rocket and sort of prevents it from every assassin using it basically is the cooldown is long. So yeah, you're really only going to get 1 rocket per match. But if you make it count, I really do think it is at least worth considering, especially if you don't have some of these other things available if you're low level, or at high levels if you have so many slots and you're like, well, I don't know what I want to do with these final slots. Just throw Rocket on there. And especially if you're high level, maybe I don't have it on the list because I haven't seen it in use yet, but Delta Rocket sounds perfect for this. And I really think it could be strong. All right, so we'll move to what I call anti-assassin or hybrid assassin. This is something I've sort of carved out for myself. I don't see people running this a lot. And if you're in my corporation, you probably don't need to worry about it because you don't really need more than 1 or 2 of these. And I'm already doing it myself. This is sort of what I've built myself for. But I'll explain it just in case it appeals to you. So I have either Delta or a Mega Shield. And that's because I love Delta on this. I'm going to talk first sort of about an anti-assassin. This is sort of similar ideas. Anti-assassin, I love Delta Shield because I can get to where the assassin is. with Delta Shield. Anti-assassin is all about matching what the other assassin is doing, and then just having a better weapon than them, so that you win the fight in a 1v1 and you can stop them before they get to what they're trying to kill. So for that reason, I have battery. I do not have laser on this list for a very specific reason, and that is because getting the Delta Shield off of the assassin is of paramount importance. Once they've lost Delta Shield, assassins lose a lot of their mobility, and are much more easily killed. So you don't want to wait for laser to ramp all the way up for 7 hours. Also, assassins have a lot of tools for moving themselves around, and you don't want them to, for example, teleport away when you're mid-ramp on your laser, and then you've lost your whole point in having laser. So I would very strongly urge for battery. You could entertain the idea of duels if they have mass battery. You'll win because single target to single target, your duels will defeat the enemy assassin. However, I'm moving further and further away from liking this, because the reality is you're going to take damage from things, whether it's Serbs or random stuff. You're going to take some damage. And also, just because you're winning the fight 1v1, the assassin can still make ground in getting towards the supports. And for that reason, maybe you do win the fight 1v1 with your duels, but maybe it's not fast enough to stop them from getting kills on your supports. And so for that reason, I really, really am strongly on the battery wagon. I also have barrier is crucial. It's the single most important for anti-assassin, for holding assassins in place, and you just shoot them until their Delta Shield is gone, and then the threat is largely neutralized. Teleport, you're trying to, if assassin blows past you, you're going to need the teleport to catch where they've gone to, or if the assassin has teleport, you need teleport to go to where they're going with teleport, because they will juke you with teleport. It's a super common thing that assassins will do all the time. And then Destiny I like because it's that instant burst of damage. So if the assassin's about to break through and you just can't get that last bit of damage that you needed to stop them from getting into your supports, you trigger Destiny, hit them for that last bit of damage that you needed, and neutralize the threat. And then you're on the magical adventure of what do I do now? How do I get out of where I've ended up? But at least you've done the thing you set out to do, which is to stop the assassin. You can use Impulse in the same way that the assassin uses Impulse, where you're just trying to match what they're doing and keep up with them. I don't find Impulse to be of enough value to really make it one of the top things to have. And then EMP also I have on here. It's going to be tough to use EMP because a lot of times the assassin fight will be out away and you're not going to be entirely sure where the fight's going to take place. So it's far away from any help, and it's far away from rocket support. So it will buy your supports time, so that maybe they can try to finish what they're doing and then run away, or run away immediately. But it's certainly not as good as Barrier for this purpose, and it's maybe worse than Impulse. I don't want to say that for sure, but it's worth having on there. And then you can sort of use Rocket in the same way here, except that instead of trying to shoot it at the supports, actually no, I have Rocket on here. It's not really good for anti-assassin, but I have it on here for the hybrid assassin. So the idea of the hybrid assassin is you're trying to oh right, I forgot to mention Omega Shield for anti-assassin can work. It just puts yourself at a disadvantage, where yeah, you're going to win the fight. You already were going to win the fight though, because battery is better than mass battery in a 1 versus 1 fight. But so it will help you win the fight more soundly, but that's only if you can get into position. And if you play perfectly, you can still be an anti-assassin with Omega. That's how I used to do it. But I really strongly think that Delta is better for anti-assassin. You just have to be really active in staying online and watching for assassins to make their moves in order to prevent them. And you have to be extremely cognizant of where your positioning is, because you really need the inside line hard, because assassins are trying to like circle strafe you, right, to sort of get around you, and they can do that if they're fast enough. So you have to take the inside line really well to cut them off, and it's much harder to do that with Omega, but it can work, and I have done it, and it does what it needs to do. Now for the hybrid assassin, take Omega off of the table entirely. You're back to only Delta Shield again for hybrid assassin. And then I've seen people using regular single battery. It can work. So it's sort of, you can shift out of anti-assassin into hybrid assassin. So let's say you've killed your assassin target. Now you can go into a hybrid assassin role with your battery and try to get kills on supports with your single battery. It's going to be harder because the things will very easily tank your battery shots, but you can put yourself in a position where you can either get kills or become a threat, so that they have to prevent you from getting into that position. And then you can do the same thing with duels. You can, if you're in a pure hybrid assassin role and you're not even worried about being an anti-assassin, the hybrid in this case is you can be useful both in team fights and in being an assassin. So you come in with your duels in a team fight, and you'll be one of the last ones into the fight, but you still being present in the fight can make a big difference. If you can come in after all the EMPs are blown and you just land your duels for as long as possible, and really build up some damage, you're going to need a tank or something providing cover for you, but the tank will be grateful that they had that extra damage from someone come in while they are not able to win a fight on their own, more often than not. And then you have, you want your barrier. Just barrier has so many uses that in this sort of hybrid role, you're going to find uses for barrier no matter what you're trying to do, in these various roles that this sort of hybrid anti-assassin thing is taking on. And then teleport, same thing, is going to be, you're going to want to get around a lot. As a hybrid assassin, you're gonna either want to jump into the fight, these team fights, so that you're getting your duels ramped up ASAP. You can sort of set your teleport so that you've started it before they've even activated EMP, if your teammate is activating it, so that you land the moment after EMP goes off, and now your duels are getting even more ramped up. Destiny is sort of the similar idea, that you're trying to get in, do some damage with duels, and then Destiny, try to maximize your damage before you get killed. And then Impulse is going to still be useful, still be relevant, because you're trying to get where you're going quickly. Actually, that I don't want to say that, because Impulse isn't really for that purpose. Impulse is more about that tiny bit of speed you needed to get where you needed to be. And when you're running duels, that little bit of speed could be the difference between two battleships tanking your shot, your targeting, and you getting out of range of one of those battleships and then being able to hit a support. And then EMP is just going to be useful because, maybe you get into a team fight and you just needed that one last EMP, and then you land it, and then your team can come in and help after their EMPs have been blown already. You could also use EMP if you're trying to attack a given position. As a hybrid assassin role, you're trying to get into the danger zone, and then land an EMP, and then your slower teammates bringing the team fight can try to come in behind you and then take an advantageous fight after you've landed that EMP for them. And then rockets for the hybrid assassin, same thing as regular assassin. And then I want to talk about support just a little bit. Your trans are going to be super basic. The only trans mods that are even worth talking about are cargo, and cargo is going to be the only thing that matters for a long time, because all the other support, all the other trans mods don't even do anything in White Star. So once you get this other one is in Trust. Once you get in Trust, if you have a slot open on a trans, go ahead and throw it on. There will be times where in Trust could be really good, but I wouldn't describe it as being so good that you either need a dedicated trans only for the purpose of White Star, or I don't think you need to sacrifice your ability to make credits in your Yellow Star just to get in Trust on there. I don't think it's that good, but it's worth throwing on if you had a slot for it. So there's a lot of options for gas harvesting. Your Genesis is really the one that's unique to White Star purposes. You can get use out of Genesis on your Yellow Stars, but it really shines in White Stars because it creates gas. And then later on here, you'll see I have Enrich. Enrich plus Genesis creates a lot of gas. And if your whole team... So Genesis is actually more important because everyone on your team could utilize Genesis and try to stack a ton of gas in one spot, and then only takes one Enrich from one person, and then boom, you've created a ton of gas. So that's the sort of the generation of gas, which can be really important. It can be, and it basically always is. It's almost always going to be extremely important to make a lot of gas, because that's how points are scored. It's easy to forget about this stuff, but at the end of the day, things come down to how many points did you score, and you can't score points that don't exist for you to take. Of course, then you have to actually harvest the gas. That's where your remote mining and boost come in. Everybody already has these things generally because that's what you want for your Yellow Star and your Red Star. So you're going to have these, people will have these already. You don't have to worry about getting them. It's just a matter of who has the best one, and then have the people who don't have the best ones, be you guys who fire rockets, or the guys who use their trans that just barely have your 8 slots. I should say on your cargo, you want to get your total cargo space to be 8. There will very often be enough time to get 2 relics. It's actually, even if you have 3 slots available, or so 12, if you had 12 available, there's going to be a lot of times where you don't have that much time in order to get all 3. And it's super easy to get 8 slots. It's harder to get 12 and really hard to get 16 in terms of how long you've had to have been playing the game for. And so it's you can very easily get yourself very useful in a trans with 8 slots on a support. So I also should mention Crunch is another great way. If you have 3 slots on your gas harvesters, you already have Boost, you already have Remote Mining, go ahead and get Crunch and crunch out a quick burst of gas. You could also do Genesis plus Enrich and instantly crunch. So Genesis is an instant, Enrich is instant, and then Crunch is also instant. So you could sort of do like a quick sweep where you drop in Genesis, drop Enrich, drop a Crunch, drop your gas off, then return home. All instant, well, not instantly. You still have to drive to these different places, but it's a much faster route than having to stop and actually harvest the gas. So you could get your miner in, get that gas loaded up and onto a planet, and then back home, so that you can switch to something like a trans for either rockets or for actually harvesting the relics. And then quickly, the support mods here are your rockets. Rockets at the warp gate, I think, are a terrible thing for the game, but they are a necessity for the game if you want to win. It creates sort of like a safe zone, yeah, but in terms of, I'll deviate. I'll move away from hating on rockets so hard. I don't think they're a good thing for the game, but you're gonna want them. You're gonna want at least 3, if not more, people firing rockets, because you'll get support kills just by chance that got left. But the big thing you want rockets for are team fights where EMP starts to dominate the fight, and then you just have this big cluster of dudes who are EMP'd, and then you just stream in a ton of rockets and eliminate the entire enemy team. And yeah, the enemy might do the same thing. Everybody gets eliminated. Isn't that fun? But you don't want to be on the side that doesn't have the rockets. That is for sure. And then you have your time warp. This time warp is going to be good for both your miners who need to mine. Also, if you're running the crunch instant thing, it's good to be able to move around quickly. It's good to have time warp active around your warp gate, because there's going to be a lot of activity around your warp gate, and if anyone else is running warp gate who needs to move further away, they can save their time warp until after they've moved through yours and then activate theirs, and that'll make a big difference for getting longevity out of their time warp. Barrier is good as a defensive measure. It basically, you'll notice I haven't mentioned stealth at all. Stealth, I think once you have barrier, there's just zero reason to have stealth. I think there's already zero reason to have stealth, but any argument for stealth is just eliminated by barrier, because barrier will protect all of the supports, not just you, and more effectively do so. Getting caught in barrier is really bad news, because the things will change from under you that you thought, like, I was going to the right place. Barrier happens, you got locked into a spot where you were going to the right place. Now suddenly everything's changed from underneath you, and now you're moving to a bad position. And then finally, Sanctuary. Supports, everybody's trying to kill supports. It makes sense to have Sanctuary so that you don't lose the money if that doesn't actually indeed happen. But keep in mind, you're losing out on some goods like rockets. Well, you're not going to run rockets when you're actually running around within the White Star. That's more of a thing you're going to want to use when you're at the gate. But sacrificing time warp, however, is a very big deal. Time warp is a huge thing for supports. So to have to, if you only have one support slot, which you will for a long time, having to drop time warp to take Sanctuary is a real sacrifice, and something you should think about whether or not you want to do that. And that's all I have. So this video is over an hour long now. Sorry about that. I'm going to break it down with some timestamps so that in the comments people can deal with that. actually, given that it's already an hour, why not go for it? Let's check out. Right now there's an event where you can actually see the battleships that have been doing the most damage. And we're going to use this as a little cheat tool to see what's working. What are people using that is actually getting people a lot of damage? And it's not a perfect system for looking at value, because, for example, Destiny, you see a lot of guys running Destiny here. You're not going to necessarily always want Destiny, but for getting on this leaderboard, it's great because that Destiny counts to your damage total. So if you land a Destiny on like 3 people, you just got yourself 18,000 damage with one button push. That's a lot. These guys are at the very top, so it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you get to the bottom of the list, that's a lot. So things that do a lot of this, you also see, for example, Unity's on here, so that's going to amp their damage up more. And it's in a list that ranks people by damage. That's going to matter. And it's going to inflate the look of like, okay, it looks like Unity's amazing because all the top guys are using it, but it's great for ramping up a lot of damage. But these guys perhaps sacrificed some utility that would have been really useful for team fights. I don't want to speak for them. Maybe they wouldn't agree, but it's certainly a possibility. So that said, we have we're seeing a lot of Destiny. Every single person except one guy is running teleport, and these are tanky ships. You see, everybody's got mass bat and omega shields. So even on your tank ships, teleport is so critical, and that's probably why they're still on this list, because they are alive now. People who die lose their damage, and that's not important only for this list, but in general, dying is bad. People, it's so frustrating to me when people throw their lives away thinking like they're making us some kind of great sacrifice. For one, when you die, a lot of times you're not doing as much good as you thought you were, and by not being alive and being present in the fight for a solid amount of time, you are not doing anything for the team in that period of time. And I'm not saying that there's never a time where it's good to sacrifice yourself. I've done it. There are lots of times where sacrificing yourself is valuable, but it's not as often as people think. So try not to die, and teleport is a great tool for not dying. Actually, there's only 2 guys running barrier. I thought that would be higher, but barrier's not good for doing damage. It's good for controlling who does damage, so that could be why. I actually have a guy running impulse, so that's kind of crazy to me that this guy's got a Durandal. He's got impulse and then a very standard like tank build. So I don't know what the deal with that is. Maybe he has it purely to catch assassins. I don't know. You see, this guy in the second and first place. There's a mod called Bond, called Bond. I don't have that yet. I don't want to speak to Bond when I don't know how Bond works. I've seen it used a little bit. I've never been that impressed with it. It seems more of like a way to harass people in red stars than anything all that valuable in white stars. But I guess I don't know. I don't want to speak too strongly. I don't want to sway opinions on Bond when I haven't seen it in use. And then you'll see everybody. This guy, top guy, actually is using duels. So that guy has actually managed to bring to fruition what looks like should be the case on paper, and that's that duels can do a lot of damage. But as I'll scroll down. Oh no. I'll scroll down and I'll show that there's not that many duels on the list. Let me bring that back up. So we have the top guy running duels, right? So that he's got the damage with the duels. And then we have a ton of single bat. There's A duels, single bat, single bat, single bat, single bat duels. Bat duels. So it's all bat. There's our first laser right there. So if you're wondering who wins in the laser versus battery competition, it seems just from evidence right here in front of us, laser sucks. That I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Laser sucks. Uh, and if you have a great laser, it's probably better than starting over with bat. It might be. I don't know. But if you were thinking about doing it the other way around, I would strongly advise against switching away from bat and going to laser. And duels are making the list for sure. And then you'll also see a lot of these guys doing a lot of damage all have Omega shields. I guess they're just getting into team fights. A few passive shields even. But I guess these guys are getting into team fights and then just winning the team fights or getting out when they need to. And it's, on one level, you want to take this with a grain of salt. This is only measuring damage, and there's more to the game than just doing damage. These guys probably got a lot of help from their team setting up situations where they can do this kind of damage. But at the same time, damage is an extremely important stat to look at. And the fact that these guys have managed to also not die in doing doing this damage is pretty meaningful. So let's look a little more here. It's just some random. Seeing not a lot of VMP. There's one there, one there. My corp right now is running a ton of VMP, and when it comes down to it, you're seeing here on the list, it could be that these guys are getting EMP in front of them from a teammate so that they can come in and be the one to do the damage. That could very well be the case, and that maybe EMP at high levels is still super important. But looking at the list, it seems less important than maybe like literally virtually every person in my corporation either currently runs EMP or has for a long time, and maybe only recently. Like I only recently switched from EMP maybe 2 or 3 games ago. You're seeing a good amount of barrier. Not a lot of delta, but again, delta, the purpose of assassins is to kill supports who have 1 hit point. So you're not going to do a lot of damage as assassins generally. This guy sort of built a mooncake here. He sort of built how I was talking about. This is sort of my build of my anti-assassin build. So it's not something that I've completely invented and no one else is doing it, and you got to trust me on just my word. This guy's gotten into 36th place doing basically an anti-assassin build. I assume that's how he's playing this. It could be he's playing it in a totally different way that I've not thought of. He could maybe he just comes to the fight as the last person. I don't know. And so he doesn't feel the need to have Omega. But I don't know. If I were to guess, though, I think he's probably anti-assassin. But I think you can come to this list and look yourself. I don't want to draw too many conclusions, and maybe when you look at it, things will pop out to you that aren't popping out to me. But it's a good place to go to look for ideas about how you want to try to build your ship. And you can look for people who have similar builds to you or similar builds to what you would like to make, but are different. And maybe that difference is the thing that you need to really perfect what you have built. That's really all I have. It's an hour and 15 minutes. So if you've watched this from beginning to end, I applaud you. Hopefully people will use the little bookmarks I'm going to add, and that's all I got. Have a good one.